What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Derick Gant. Derick is a money manager, and he's here to talk to us about how we can stop the bleeding. No, not the literal bleeding, of course, but how we can stop the bleeding of our finances so that we can start to gain traction and get ourselves moving forward. Of course, we talk about more than that, how we can find our purpose, how we can find something that we're good at and actually enjoy our work. But a big portion of our conversation is around the number one thing that we can do if we want to start gaining traction in our finances, and that is stop the bleeding. Stop the things that you're doing that are causing the most hurt. And it takes a little bit of work and reflection in order to make that happen. So get your pen and paper out, get ready to take some notes, and enjoy this conversation with Derick Gant. Derick, here we are back, round two. I was on your podcast not all that long ago.
Mhm.
It seems like we're just jumping back into another conversation. We might as well just be sitting here having coffee at this point.
I love it, man. I love coffee and I love hanging out with you.
No doubt, no doubt. So you got your work clothes on today. We were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, what does work look like to you?
Well, these are my money clothes.
Yeah, yeah.
And
What's that
so
mean?
there's a difference, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is game time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then when I'm dressed normally in my branded golf shirt or branded t-shirt or whatever, it's practice. It's preparation. So, a
Nice.
work day, like for me on a money day, usually means that I'm meeting somebody brand new. When it comes to what I do as a financial consultant, people have an expectation when they meet a money guy. And, if you're meeting someone and they're looking to invest, $500,000, they don't expect to see a t-shirt,
Don't roll up in a t-shirt and jeans.
Yeah, I mean, they're used to seeing banker, right? A banker in a suit and tie. So I've been doing this for 30 years, and the one thing you don't want to do is not is present yourself in a way that you're eliminated before a person gets a chance to really know you, before you get a chance to open your mouth. And so, when it's a money day, I will show up, game ready. If it's a coaching client, usually it's more business casual, so I might not have the tie on. I'll have the shirt on, but not the tie. And because of our coaching clients, it still revolves around money. Most of the time, they don't have a lot of money, so we don't have to go full banker
Full on,
tilt. Yeah, we don't have to go full on banker
no
tilt on
doubt.
them. But yeah, that's a money
Nice.
day for me. A regular work day for me is doing reports and figuring out strategies for clients, looking at bank accounts, figuring out where people are kind of slipping and dipping on their finances, or helping them to figure out, how they can monetize their gifts, because
Mm.
that's kind of really where my magic lies. It's being able to see to see money in every circumstance.
Hey, that's that's magic, no doubt.
Yeah,
Hence the 24K life.
hence the
So
24K life.
I'm curious, before we get into the 24K life
Mhm.
itself, what led up to the 24K life?
What happened was that I have this vision of being able to spread a message of financial security, better stated, for the lack of financial slavery. So many people are shackled to their job, to their boss, to bad situations because money's tight. I've coached or worked with women who, you know, are getting abused at home, but because he controls the purse strings, they can't leave, and so they feel, shackled and sheltered. And so I realized that there was only so many people that I could meet with one on one. There were so many people I could talk to, and so I was like, man, how can I can really help people to figure out how to be better? And the money discussion is just the impetus to the other side, which is your fitness. We talked about this on
Yep.
my show. It's just the impetus to the other things. It's the you need money to buy the ticket, to get the personal trainer, to get the nutritionist, to get, the therapist to help you get over all your life's traumas, so that eventually you could tap into your gifts and then make more money, or, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So that's how it came about. It was really this thing, like, you need all of these core areas of your life to be to be hitting on point in order to truly feel good, right? You can be super fit and broke,
Yeah.
and
And there's
ultimately
plenty
don't
of
fit.
that.
It still
There's
don't feel
plenty of that.
good, right?
Hmm.
so
You go down to
so
Venice Beach, where Arnold used to train all the time. I'm sure there's
mhm,
plenty of fit and
plenty,
broke.
plenty. So so that's where it started, man. It was a personal desire, personal mission to take my 30 years of financial experience and say, how can I package it and put it out there to help people figure out how to live a little bit better life.
Well, and here's the truth. Like, it's sad that we have been convinced that we need to live the life that we live as a
Right.
society, right?
Yep. Yep.
A 9 to 5, live the struggle. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to go. If you want to do better, just work a little longer, work a little harder,
Hmm.
whatever the frame is that goes
Right.
around that.
Yep.
Work long enough so that you can get to 65 and then you can retire.
Wow.
What, right?
Thank you. Yeah. 40 years of work. Thank you.
Yeah. Just so you can get to 65 and retire, and odds
Right.
are you didn't take care of yourself that whole
Mhm.
time, so that when you get to 65, you're not actually able to enjoy any of that retirement.
Right.
So let's talk about working hard, because I
Hmm.
saw one of your reels you put out maybe a couple weeks ago, a month ago at
Yeah.
this point, and it was about working hard
Hmm.
and the lie or the myth, I guess, of working hard. If you want to do better, just work harder. If you want to
Right.
do better, just go get a job that pays you more, which is
Yeah.
one way to get more money in your pocket, but it
Right.
is not a way to create wealth. Now, this is coming from a person. I'm not a person that has created wealth yet,
Hmm.
but I understand to an extent what it means.
Correct.
So, what's the difference between working hard and working smart, and does it take both?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain degree, you have to do some of both, but let's talk about it from this perspective of the post that I put out. So, the post I put out was really talking about, the concept that we've been droned into, that we have to work hard in order to thrive, in order to live a great life. And my point was that there are actresses, actors, athletes that probably work 3 to 4 hours a day, not diminishing their greatness. I'm just simply saying that if you take a look, you ask me the difference for myself of my outfit. Well, let's take an athlete. Let's take one of the greatest athletes that we know about, and we know a lot about his history, which, let's say, Kobe Bryant. And he would wake up in the morning, early morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. He'd go to the gym, he'd work out. So let's say put in a couple hours there, go home, have breakfast, play with the kids, get them to school, and then he'd go to team practice, right? And they'd practice for 2 or 3 hours. So now he's 4 hours into the day. He does all of his icing down and stretching and all the stuff with the chiropractor. Let's say it's another hour. He got 5 hours in that day, and he's done. And he gets paid $100 million or $200 million or whatever
Whatever.
the
Yeah.
contracts
Mhm.
are. They're ridiculous. And the same thing goes for other professionals. And so I think what we get tricked into, and think about what they do on actual game day. They work 3 4 hours and they're done.
And that's that.
You know, and
Mhm.
so I think that it's not that we get tricked. It's just that the system is structured because they need us worker bees to go to work, to buy the TVs, to buy the cars, to buy the bicycles, to buy the skateboards, to buy the bags, the hats, all the
Stuff.
things that people are manufacturing so that the manufacturers can get wealthy, but they need us to buy them because there's not enough rich people. The rich people
It just
keep their money.
yeah. They're not
Right.
consumers. They're
They're
not
not
consumers.
consumers.
Yep.
And so the thing is that what you're asking me is that um the first thing that I would say is that, all the people that I named have landed on their gift, right? They've landed on their purpose. They've landed on their love. You talk to an athlete, most of them love what they do. Most of them would play ball. I'm an ex-athlete. I would play for free in my prime just to compete and be the whole caveman,
Mhm.
gladiator thing. I'm a better
Yeah.
gladiator than you, right?
Mhm.
And so most athletes do it because they love the game. Now, don't get me wrong, they also get paid a lot of money,
Mhm.
and most
And that
actresses
helps.
and singers and yeah, singers and I mean, these people like are crazy. They're actually obsessed with what they do. Meanwhile, most 9 to 5 people can't stand getting up going to work. I mean, the statistics are 47% of people can't stand their work,
Sure.
and the another 47% are going, "Do I have to go?"
Yeah. It's okay if I don't show
Yeah,
up, and I'm all right with
is it
that.
okay?
Yeah.
And so you look at it and you say, man, how can I, number one, fall into my gift? And number two, if you're falling into your gift, it doesn't feel like work. And so therefore you're not really working hard. And it may sound silly, but like my mom, she's long gone, but I used to visit her in Texas. And as soon as I got there, man, I'd set up at her dining room table, laptop, pens, pencils, whatever I needed, calculators. And she'd be like, "Well, why don't you come over here and sit down and watch this show?" And she'd be watching some stupid ass show that was melting her brain, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I can see it from here. And then,
Yeah.
it's a few days, she was, "You just work too hard." I'm like, "Mom, this is fun."
Yeah.
Like, I would be bored out of my mind sitting over there on the couch,
Mhm.
twiddling my thumbs, watch, because we're all different. But I happen to be one of the few people that have fallen into their love, their passion, their joy, because I believe I was put here to help people be financially free.
Mm. It's funny. I was actually thinking about this a little bit today as far as like work hours. I don't know why in the world I started thinking about this, but I got home from the gym. So like I get up 5 o'clock in the morning, go through whatever routine, go work out. I usually get there about 7:30, get finished
Mhm.
at 9, get back here, do some stuff on the phone, which is technically work, sit down,
Mhm.
eat, and blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. But I don't sit in front of a computer until
Right.
maybe 10:30 or potentially 11.
That's love.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so what people have a hard time grasping is
Mhm.
like all that stuff that happened before that 10:30 or 11 time. Is that work? And they look at that and they go, "Well, you're not really doing anything." So if you actually start like when I get to the point where I'm actually creating revenue and creating a life, building an online brand, we've talked about this on your podcast before, what I'm trying to
Right.
do now.
Mhm.
Like when I get to the point when that happens and people are like, "That's how you're living your life. You're not even working that hard. And
Right.
what you're doing is going to the gym in the morning and you don't do any work until 11." It's like, no, there's a big difference between how I'm structuring my life and what
Right.
most people believe is
Is work.
is work.
Right. I mean, because think about it. We just talked about it from the 24K life perspective. If you were working and unhealthy, I mean, how much energy can you put into training the client? We were just talking about a new contract that you got, and you're going to go, and these people expect you to show up ready to roll, and you
Mhm.
show up unhealthy. I mean, they're not listening to you.
And how does like people don't translate that into their own lives.
Well, no,
People
that's
don't.
that's what I'm co-signing what you're saying
Yeah.
because it may not they may say, well, you're not working, you're on your phone, and there's plenty of people that go, you're just on your phone. Okay, well, number one, I might be doing some research.
Mhm.
I might be looking at my analytics. I
Mhm.
might be I might be figuring out from other people's content what's hot right now so that I can create my own content when I sit down in front of my computer. So work, of course, the word is relative to what people make it. I believe that personally, I believe work is the stuff you don't want to do.
Mm.
I mean, you really
Yeah.
detest doing it, right? I
Uh-huh.
got to go to work,
Right.
right? Because people who love what they do say, I have a career.
Mm.
They say, I have a purpose,
That's good.
right? I
That
mean,
is
so
good.
to
Mm.
me, my little personal definition is that work is a negative connotative word
Mhm.
and it's hard and it doesn't have to be hard. It can be fun, it can be flowing. And let's just be honest, for us men, if you're not breaking a sweat or getting blisters, you probably don't feel like you're working. Or if you're not mentally exhausted, you don't feel like you're working. And we have to learn as men, we have to learn how to transition out of that mindset because we end up dying first.
Yeah, no doubt. On average, we do.
Oh, 100%.
And
Ask
it's
the
not.
actuaries.
Yeah, and it's not just a year or 2. It's
Oh,
it's
no.
enough.
No, no, it's plenty.
So, here's the funny thing, and this is, I think, one of the points that you're hitting on is, like, work is all about the context of what you put it in, right? It's all about, like, what it takes to actually do what you do.
Hmm.
So, when like, I rant about people being on social media a lot.
Right.
I talk about that and how that destroys people's
Hmm.
lives, and it does.
Absolutely. I agree.
Destroys people's minds, destroys people's lives, destroys their beliefs in themselves, destroys their views of the world. And yet there's lots of good on it. And you and I both I don't want to say rely on it, but
Mhm.
we build our brand, if you will, online,
Right.
and it's done through
Absolutely.
social media.
Mhm.
So I now spend more time on social media than I did in the previous 5 years. I've done more in the last 3 months on social media than I have in the previous 5 years. But
Right.
here's how it's different. And this is the important part of the distinction of how it relates to what you're doing.
Mhm.
So if I'm spending time on my phone, I'm working.
Right.
What would most people would define as work,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Right.
I'm either posting something, which people go, so you're posting something on Instagram. What does that have
Mhm.
to do? That's marketing.
Right.
That's marketing. I'm posting something, I'm posting a story, I'm responding to a comment, I'm going into other people's profiles
Mhm.
purposefully going into other people's profiles and commenting and liking and sharing
Sharing
other
your
people's
sharing
stuff.
your wisdom, right? So that
Exactly.
people know you're an expert that's out there with real game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset shift that it takes to be able to look outside of that box of
Mhm.
9 to 5 and go, okay, what can I actually do that might fit my what I think I'm here to do or
Right.
what I actually enjoy doing.
Mhm.
So, how do you start to get somebody to understand or even think differently about how you can shift and do something different? You can do something that you can enjoy,
Right.
and here's how you start to kind of take those steps.
Yeah, I would say that it's funny, man, because most guys
Mm,
aren't surfing around on social media looking at cats tap dance and drink milk and flip over backwards, right? I mean, if we're on there, usually it's for a purpose. Um, because it's just not like us. We're not posting recipes and taking pictures of our dinner. Now, I actually do know a lot of guys do do that, and I think it's absurd.
no
And
judgment.
so, like, give you an example, man. I had a guy that wanted some coaching, but he was an associate. So he says, "Hey, I noticed you just got this traction, and people love your stuff. What should you be doing? What should I be doing?" And I was like, "Well, first thing, you stop posting all them goddamn pictures of your dinner." He's an insurance salesman. What does that have to do? Are you going to tell somebody they're choking on the steak or what? I'm confused because you're posting pictures of your dinner and nobody cares what you ate last night. But how do you think differently? First of all, if you have a purpose or a business, then you have to start thinking differently. If you are, a 9 to 5er and you're just trying to take a break from the real world, and you use social media as your timeout, as you've already said, it's geared to make you more sad.
Mm,
I did a class, I'm sorry, I did a speaking engagement, and we had a little breakout session, and I had, I don't know, 200 kids. When I say kids, I'm talking high school seniors. And I asked them, it was evenly split with girls and boys, and I asked them, how many pictures do you take before you post one?
mm,
And this has nothing to do with business. And I said 5, 10. Oh, they were like, oh no, 20, 30. I'm like, oh my God, you know how much time you waste? And then they edit the one or two that they think they want to
yeah.
post. And so, how do you get people to start looking at it differently? First of all, I think they have to have a business concept, or a desire to purport a certain message. Let me give you an idea, or an example. I have a client, or I know a guy. He was a client. He's not a client anymore. He's a dentist, and he posts, but his intent, he doesn't post about his dental business. Every once in a while, he'll post a picture of him in his lab coat
Mm,
or his dental jacket, whatever, whatever. But for the most time, he's just posting like inspirational, encouraging messages to lift people up, because he sees so many people, so many different people, and they're all not all, but most of them are down or negative. So he constantly promotes this positive mindset, positive lifestyle, which I think is great. But you don't really see him posting weird, fights. Like my kids, they'll post or repost a fight. I'm like, what benefit does that do society
mhm,
to see somebody fighting?
mm,
Because it's not healthy. It's not, I mean, it's not a
mhm.
fight. I mean, it's some kids or some adults doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And so, I really think that, and let's just be honest, man, there's a certain faction of people you want just doing what they do, right? Because some of those
Just
people need your help. Those are your clients that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're going to elevate up and get them out of that.
Mhm,
And so they need that exposure of why it's bringing them down, and for somebody like you to walk them through that, and how maybe instead of doing that, they go for a walk outdoors, or they go for a jog, or they go to the gym, or they do something more constructive to help to really build themselves from the inside out. But yeah, the whole social thing is really interesting, and I can tell you from my own business perspective, I have a social media person. And so my problem is going on social media to make sure I comment, I respond, because I give them the content, they post it, and I just keep moving. And if you
Hmm.
catch me on social media, I might be doing some research or checking my analytics, but for the most part, I get reports, and
Hmm.
I might go
That
on.
lets you
I
know what's
I
going
do
on.
go on to figure out, well, what's the latest trend and what's really going on. And a lot of times I won't even follow it.
Mm.
So a guy tried to get me to hire him to help me expand my brand. And he goes, I'm going to show you how to do all this stuff. And I started looking at his stuff, and everything he was doing was like, if a superstar did something wrong, let's say they said something racist or something,
Hmm.
he'd grab that copy, put it on the post, and then he'd comment on what they did wrong. And I'm like, okay, but
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get fake attention,
Right.
right? And I don't,
You're trying to
nothing
get
against what
attention around
he's
what you
doing.
do.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
trying to get people that want to be financially better, and that's not going to help me. Not unless the person I'm talking about blew $1 million. Now that might be pertinent, but you
Right.
know, so yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing. There's a lot of good, but um there's just so much pull in the opposite direction that, you just got
Yeah,
to be very purposeful
I mean,
about
but
it.
think about it, man. It's like, and I don't know if you do it, but I know I do it. Um, it's like Pavlov's dog. It's like the psychology on it. When I say I don't know if you do it, I'll grab my phone for no reason and I'll open it, not even know what to go look at. But
You're
it's
a
just
couple minutes in, you're like,
yeah,
where did this phone come from?
yeah. You're like, you pick it up, you open it, like, okay, well, I guess I'll check my calendar. I guess I'll check my email. I
Yeah.
guess I'll look
It's
on a
Yep.
social. I guess did anybody send me something? Just because we're trained like that, and
Right.
our brain is constantly just spinning.
Well, and you and I can know, and you know better than I do because you're a couple of years older than me, but
You're so
you
kind.
but you and I know the world before smartphones, right?
100%.
And I can only like I reflect on that sometimes, and by no means will that ever happen. Like never
Right.
will we go backwards.
Let's pray not, because if that
Yeah.
happens, we are in big
You,
trouble.
we're in worse trouble than we currently
Yeah.
are. But
Yeah.
man, I just think about the time like when the brain was just able to just do its thing and just focus
Mhm.
on its thing. And even back then, people talked about distraction and people talked about all the noise that was around. And it's amazing how, I read books from like the 1980s and 1970s, and they're talking about how we are as a society and how degraded we are because of TV or because of radio and so on and
Right.
so forth. It's like, man, if those people are still around, I can only imagine their thoughts now, or if they had to rewrite this book, I can only imagine what they had to say.
Wow, that would be incredible, wouldn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
because like you said, I'm older than you, so I remember when there was no internet.
Mm.
I remember when AOL was the first thing
AOL.
popping, and
Mm.
dial up, that dial up sound came on, and you were like, you didn't care because that meant you were getting ready to get online and see something you ain't never seen
I'm
before.
ready.
But yeah, I
So,
mean, they would be shocked.
yeah, they'd be shocked. They'd be absolutely shocked. All right. So finding finding what you want to do in life, I think, is worth the time. And maybe it's not because I don't believe that everybody can do what they really enjoy doing.
Mhm.
But I believe that you can bring purpose to the work that you do,
Right.
and therefore make it not feel like work. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, how do you start to help somebody to bring more purpose to what they're doing so that they can bring so that it doesn't feel like work as much, it doesn't feel like 9 to 5? Or
Yeah.
how do you get somebody to start to think about transitioning to something else and finding something that they can actually call a career instead of
Right. A
just calling
job.
work?
Yeah. Man, first of all, let me say that people are, all the gurus say, you got to have a passion, you got to have
Mm.
a purpose, and you got to go fight for it. And personally, I say, why don't you find what you're good at?
Mm.
You might not, because there's plenty of people that are good at things that they don't technically like that much, but they're really good at it, which means it's really easy for them. It's like you asking me, hey, can you do my cousin's budget? Yeah, I can do it in the next 10 minutes because I've been doing it for 35 years. I don't like doing budgets. I'd rather talk about where she wants to put $2 million, but I can do a budget
Hmm.
and I can do it really quickly. So the first thing is that I would say is to tell people that don't really have this passion or purpose to figure out what they're really good at and elevate towards that. Even if you've been working in a job for so long, and you're unhappy with it, there's got to be something that you can do because you've been doing it so long. It comes easy to you. My in-laws used to work in a foundry for Ford, and they used to tell me about what they did during the day, and it was absurd
Hmm.
what they didn't do, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, it was blue collar, but their job was did it so long, it was so easy that they were playing cards and they were doing all kind of stuff on the job that you're like, you don't really work, and
Yeah.
they used to laugh about it.
Hmm.
So the first thing is to find something that you're really good at, and don't be all upset that it's so easy, because if it's paying the bills and it's easy, then you're not taking brain power, you're not getting extra tired from it. And then spend some of your extra time, like that 5 to 9, I call it. So you have your 9 to 5, then the 5 to 9, spend some of the 5 to 9 figuring out what you would like to do. And maybe you're still not passionate about it, but what you would like to do. And if you're in a position where you still have time to transition, so let's say you're in your 30s or even 40s, and you go, I want to do something, that I like a lot better. You got to go inside. You know, I don't give me a wrench, because whatever you want me to fix is going to it's going to be
It's
worse than when
not
you
going to
gave
be
it
you
to
and
me,
me both, brother. You and me
right?
both.
So I redid my basement one time, and my brother-in-law was a construction dude, and so he would not let me anywhere near any power tools because something bad
What's going to happen?
was going to happen. And so you got to know your strengths and you got to know your weaknesses, and you got to accept them, and then move in the direction of what the gifts are that God gave you. And I just don't. I'm like you. I don't believe that everybody's going to find their dream. I've been working with a young woman on her financial side for, man, 3 4 years, and I keep pushing her. I bought her a book just because I ran across this author that had this book that says "Find Your Purpose" or something.
Mm.
So I bought her the book, and just the client. So I'm always thinking about how I can help people, and so she came to mind. I'm like, well, and I told her, here's the book. I didn't read it, but the title's good based on
Mhm.
she has no idea what she really is passionate about. And I said, well, you're a customer service rep. Maybe you just should just be the best customer service rep you could ever be, and then figure out some hobby or something that makes you happy or gives you joy, or some community service, because we're all not going to. And that's why I said earlier, you might not have caught it, but I said I'm exceptionally blessed and lucky to be doing what I've always, it's a hobby to me. It's not
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
And I know that I didn't come out of the womb and go, I don't want to be a financial consultant.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so happens you
It
found it.
it happened, man. And nothing just happens. Like when we grew up, my dad was a great guy. He worked very hard, but he was terrible money manager.
Mm.
So our gas would get cut off, our lights would get cut off, and not for long. It might be one day, right? It wouldn't even
Yeah.
be long.
Yeah.
We didn't live in darkness. We never
But
missed
you
a meal.
remembered it. But you
But
remembered it.
dude, it was
Yeah.
traumatic.
Yeah.
so so I was always worried about money. So it was natural for me to do that. And then, given my heart to help people, um, not suffer the same, plight over and over again, it was just a natural fit for me.
So find something you're good at, which
Yep.
I agree with that. And like I said, find something within the abilities of which you have, right?
Yeah.
Within the abilities of which you have.
Right, right.
It may not be in the hobby in which you love and enjoy so much. If you
Hmm.
enjoy playing music, you may not be a musician,
Right.
but you may be able to put that creativity to work somewhere else in some
Yeah,
way, shape, or
or
form.
maybe you are a musician, you just can't eat off of it. Maybe you play at a with a a group
A little
that
side
doesn't.
band or something like that.
Yeah. You play a
Exactly.
little night band and you guys, play for tips, and but it's not how you eat, but you're soothing that itch.
That's a good way to put it. But yeah, if you can just find something that you're good at and you can put your put passion behind like the work that you do, or try and find some purpose in the work that you do, then
Yeah.
that'll be helpful. I think finding something you're good at, that's such a it's such a basic idea, but it's such a good idea because we
Yeah.
just like to feel competent in what we do, right?
Right.
You just like to feel like you're good at what you do. And I
Yep.
think a lot of people don't mind going to work, even though they don't necessarily like it, but they're like, yeah, I don't mind going because they're
Right.
just good at it. They just go there and they
It's
just
good
do
at
it.
it.
And
Mhm.
that's good because they're competent at
Right.
it. And there's something to be said about like being in a place, being at a job where you're competent, you're just good at it and you can
You're
just
just
do it
good at
well.
it. Yeah, we all want a pat on the back or a raise. I mean, everybody's motivated by something different, but most people want a pat on the back or a raise or words of encouragement. So that's great. But think about kids, man. I talk to high school kids or even college kids, and I don't know what I want to do. Okay, well, what are you good at? Do you love math or do you hate math? I mean, you can figure it out
Yeah.
a pretty
You can
decent
start
direction.
narrowing things down and like,
Yeah, you can narrow them down pretty quick. Do you love
mhm,
English? Do you hate English? Do you love
mhm,
history or do you hate history? So, I mean, but nobody thinks to ask those simple questions like, what's your best subject? What subject comes the easiest to you?
mhm,
And so to me, that's where you start. And then you start looking at career tracks, and opportunities there. And the other thing is don't forget that, we live at least, well, we live in America, but most people, even if you're 40, there's people that became doctors, started going back to school at 40. So if it's
mhm,
something that you really believe in and you're willing to sacrifice, don't let anything hold you back.
mm, no doubt.
Yep.
So before we jump off,
Hmm.
being the money manager that you
Yeah.
are, how do we start to allocate our funds better so that we can start to develop some sort of wealth in our lives? And
Yeah.
that's a very loaded question. I understand that.
No, no, that's a great question, and I love it. And with my years of experience, I'm ready for you, bro.
Mm,
So here's what I would say to you. I mean, you know, I have a couple. They're a client of mine, and they're mid six figures, so they do maybe a buck and a half, and they're always right on that razor's edge.
mm.
And so we got them fixed up. So you stop doing things that were hurting them. So if the first thing I would tell somebody
Stop the
is I
bleeding.
stop the bleeding. Second thing is cat, and in order to stop the bleeding, you have to cash and carry, which means if you don't have the cash, you can't buy it.
Mm,
So, and when I say cash, I mean your debit card. It can't be credit card. You
right.
can't you can't use your credit card. So either
It's
you
coming
have the
out of your
money,
pocket.
it's got to come out of your pocket.
Mhm,
That's the second thing. And so with them, they got trapped into the Amazon monster, right? They had packages coming every day.
mhm,
And so they didn't, it wasn't even high on our list of things to attack when they first started working with me. But with them, I said to them, because they came to me and they says, okay, how can we fix this? So what we did was we instituted a 30-day rule. So you create a list, put it in your shopping cart of Amazon, but you can't buy it. And when you go back in 30 days, if you still want it, you can get it. But what they do is they always are putting something in the cart. So they don't want the stuff that was in the cart before because they want the new stuff more.
new stuff, yeah.
But the new stuff has to wait 30 days.
Mm,
So they cut their spending down by seriously, they cut it down about 70%. The purchases, they cut them way
mm,
back. The next thing is that you have to have a bigger purpose. We were talking about the career, but you also have to have a plan for your life. And so your point is, do I always want to be living razor thin? What happens in a pandemic type situation? And am I prepared for it? And so if you start looking at that, you go, okay, well, do I have a month's income in the bank? Do I have 2 months income in the bank? And it doesn't have to be income, it could be expenses. Do I have 2 months of expenses in the bank? You start asking yourself those questions. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to put on a credit card because I want the points. That's what you always hear. Want the
right.
points.
Mhm,
Okay, but can you pay for it by the time it's time to go to the vacation?
yep.
Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then you need to whittle down the vacation to the amount you can afford to pay for.
Mm.
Because I got 60-year-olds that have 4 or 5 vacations still on credit cards, $25,000 worth of debt, and they
Mhm,
could not imagine not going on vacation when I told them, you can't afford to go on vacation.
mm,
So, what can people do? The first thing, man, is they stop the bleeding, they cash and carry, And then I would say, and I know I already given some other ideas, which are really critical ideas, but let's just be honest. The best investment you could ever make is in yourself.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is figuring out how you can monetize whatever skills, gifts, and talents you have to create more money. Why worry about how much a $4 Starbucks coffee costs? Why don't you figure out how to make $400 more a month?
mm,
Because that's more exciting, right? That's
mhm,
more beneficial to you versus counting every penny. Let's add more pennies.
mm,
And so, like what you were saying earlier, it's like, what are you great at? What are you good at? How can you monetize your talents so that even if you're working a 9 to 5, what can you do 5 to 9 to transition to your 9 to 5 out, transition that out. And if you don't start thinking about it and you don't start putting it into practice, because it's going to take a little bit of time for you to come good at monetizing those gifts, as you already know.
mm.
And because even with me, right? Financial consultant, investment advisor, stock, money manager, but I'm moving to financial literacy, which is online. And so you're like, okay, well, how do I build this community? How do I
Mhm.
build this awareness? It's work,
Yeah,
right? We talked about work. That's work
that's
because
work.
it's
Mhm,
different, even though the content's the same, but it's work I want to do because it's still part of the passion. I just got to do the work to learn about the posting, about the analytics, about making videos and TikToks and all that kind of stuff.
yep.
But it's work I want to do. So once I learn how to do it, it's no longer work. Now I'm going back into my passion.
So I love the first part of that. Stop the bleeding.
Yep.
The analogy that I like, and this is in health and fitness too, because so many people start working out, right? But
Hmm.
they still go to McDonald's for breakfast.
Still got the chips.
Still got the chips in the cupboard that they grab at night whenever they're sitting on the couch. They still get their 1,000 calorie drink at Starbucks.
Ooh.
So stop the bleeding. And the analogy that I like that I say is think about driving a sports car and you're trying to see how fast it'll go. So you put your foot on the gas, but your other foot's on the brake. If your other foot's on the brake, car ain't gonna go anywhere.
Right.
Makes perfect sense, right?
Yep.
You let your foot off the brake, car's gonna take off and it's
Let's
gonna
take
go.
off. Right.
So what most people overlook in finances and health and fitness and a
Every
broad
aspect of life,
life in
right?
general is
Yes.
one of the first things that you need to do is stop the
Stop the
bleeding. Take your
bleeding.
foot off the brake,
Yep.
and that immediately will start you'll
Producing
start gaining
results.
more traction
Absolutely.
right off
Absolutely.
the bat.
Right off the bat. And it's the same, and it's a great way that you put it because, you know, in my universe, when I talk about 24K life, which really taps onto money, fitness, relationships, spirituality, and your physical fitness and your mindset, you can't start with most people by saying, your head's screwed on. You can't, nobody wants to hear that, right?
Right.
Nobody's going to say, yeah, I'm not thinking
Yeah.
about this right.
Mhm.
But what you just showed everyone is that their head's not screwed on right because you've got to stop the bleeding. You got to stop the bad, the negative, the downfall, whatever's hurting you. And you can't put a band aid on it because you need to suture it,
Mm. That's
right?
good.
You got
Mhm.
to suture it. A band aid's just covering up, So you can't say, oh, I'm only going to eat donuts on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I used to eat them every day, but now
Right.
it's not going to.
That's good. That's so good.
So that's great advice, bro. And you're 100% correct. And you're an amazing coach and helping a lot of people. So I think that's amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. You've got some years on me, so I got a little bit of catching up to do before I've helped as many people as you.
No
Uh,
competition, brother. We just out there both doing what we can do.
well, I'm still gonna watch you and catch up. No, I'm just kidding.
Appreciate you. Anything I can
No,
do to help you catch up, let me know.
I appreciate that, brother. Derek, where do people find you?
They can go to DerickGant.com and it's DerickGant.com. And you can find me on it's my social, it's my website, it's everything. So everything you need can be found right there.
Very good, brother. Thanks so much. Thanks for the wisdom. Stop the bleeding, y'all. Stop the bleeding.
Stop the bleeding.
Appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely, man.